Cairo, 1021 AD. In a windowless chamber beneath the palace, shrouded by darkness and secrecy, the Fatimid Caliph embarked on an experiment so controversial, so dangerous, that it would be erased from history for almost a millennium. Hidden away from the eyes of the world, this dark experiment would forever alter the course of warfare, biology, and power. Its records were not just hidden. They were burned, erased from every scroll and manuscript, sealed away by those who feared its consequences. For 900 years, the truth lay dormant, buried under the sands of time. No one knew of the terrifying ambition that lived in the heart of the Fatimid Caliph, an ambition so grand it sought to redefine the very essence of human strength and ability. Why did the Caliph turn to such extremes? What was it that led him to experiment with the human form, breeding a new kind of soldier, one stronger, taller, and fiercer than any the world had seen? In the heart of his empire, beneath the bustling streets of Cairo, at the pinnacle of the Fatimid dynasty, a secret was born. A secret that, for centuries, would be lost in time, until now. While Europe was gripped by famine, plague, and the fall of empires, the Fatimids flourished, unfazed, unyielding. In the heart of the Middle East, amidst the wealth and power of Cairo, the Fatimids did not simply build an empire. They engineered something far more radical. They built the world's first talent-based breeding program, a project so bold it defied the natural order. Their rules were simple, yet terrifying in their implications. Only those who met the highest physical standards were chosen. Only the strongest, the largest, the most formidable were allowed to join. First, recruit only those slaves from Persian and Nubian tribes who stood taller than 6 feet. A mere inch or two shorter meant you were unworthy. Second, every recruit had to prove their might, not through the typical trials of warfare, but through a brutal ancient test. They wrestled bulls, their bodies pitting against the raw, wild strength of nature itself. Only those who could withstand the fierce combat, only those who could emerge victorious, were granted a place in the Caliph's service. And third, a terrifying rule of survival. If you failed to grow in your puberty years, if you failed to reach the desired height and strength, there would be no second chances. You would be executed. For the Caliph, weakness was not an option. These were not soldiers bred for duty. They were born of a brutal, merciless experiment, a vision of power that would see the Caliph's empire dominate all others. Al-Makrizi, a scholar who chronicled the life of the Fatimids, would later write in his Al-Mawaiz that the guards of the Caliph were giants, men who could lift horses with their bare hands. But these men were not born naturally. They were crafted, forged from bloodlines, and carefully curated genetics. While the rest of the world languished, starved, and fought for survival, the Fatimids designed a new class of warriors, soldiers not of fate, but of design. The question remains, how far was the Caliph willing to go to create the perfect warrior? And what dark secrets did he hide in the process? The Fatimid Caliph's empire was a beacon of intellectual achievement. Cairo, in 1021 AD, was the heart of the Islamic Golden Age, where knowledge flowed freely like the Nile itself. Scholars and philosophers from every corner of the known world gathered in the House of Wisdom, studying astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and the mysteries of the universe. This was an empire built on knowledge, on the cutting edge of innovation. But beneath this veil of intellectual prosperity, hidden in the shadows of this magnificent empire, was a secret far darker than any knowledge found in the scrolls of sages. In the silence of this clandestine chamber, away from the prying eyes of the empire, the Caliph's ambition took root. His vision was not just for an empire of scholars. No, the Caliph sought something greater, a force that could not only defend the empire, but conquer all that lay beyond it. This was the Caliph's ultimate weapon, a terrifying, inhumane program that would shape the future of warfare itself. It was an experiment not in intellect, but in physical might. A vision of warriors, so powerful, so mighty, that they could turn the tide of any battle. But this was not a program for just any soldier. This was a program for giants. The rules were strict. Only those with the potential for unrivaled strength were selected. Persian and Nubian slaves, already known for their imposing statures, were recruited, not for their skills in battle, but for the potential that their bodies held. They were chosen based on size, strength, and endurance, but even that was not enough. To become a part of the caliph's dream, these men would be subjected to more than mere physical tests. They would undergo a process, a breeding program that could only be described as horrifying, a genetic experiment that would see the forging of warriors who could not be stopped. Their purpose was simple: to create soldiers who could not only protect the empire, but shatter the ranks of their enemies. Under the shadow of the House of Wisdom, in the secrecy of this empire's deepest chambers, the caliph would stop at nothing to ensure that the warriors he sought would rise above the rest, and the lengths he would go to would leave a scar on history. These warriors, born of the caliph's will, would not be mere men. They would be giants, built from a genetic blueprint designed for one purpose: domination. But the ambition of the caliph did not come without its risks. The creation of such warriors would not be easy, nor without consequence. The very fabric of society would be torn asunder in the process. For the caliph's vision was one of unchecked power, and those who stood in his way would fall. The recruitment was ruthless. Only those who met the exacting standards of the caliph's twisted vision were chosen. No mercy was shown. Only the strongest would survive. Only Persian and Nubian slaves, already towering over the average man, could enter this brutal world. They had to be over 6 feet tall, larger than life perhaps, but not large enough for what the caliph demanded. This was no ordinary recruitment. It was a selection of the finest genetic material, drawn from lands where height and strength were the marks of greatness. For those who made it past the initial test, height, came the ultimate trial of strength: wrestling bulls. A test designed not just to measure physical prowess, but to break them. To see who had the mettle to survive in the face of impossible odds. These men weren't just meant to fight. They were meant to be titans, unyielding and unstoppable. Those who could not match the strength of a bull, those who faltered, were discarded. Their bodies were left behind like discarded tools, thrown away as easily as the caliph had forged them. And if a recruit failed to meet the most fundamental requirement of all, if they failed to grow, to become the giants the caliph desired, they were executed. It was a brutal, unforgiving process. Growth spurts were no longer just a matter of nature. They became a matter of life and death. Those whose bodies did not conform to the caliph's exacting standards, whose bones did not stretch high enough to meet the demands, were eliminated. Such was the price for failure: execution, a barbaric end to those who could not achieve the idealized form of a soldier forged in the fires of this cruel breeding program. Al-Makrizi, a historian whose words have withstood the test of time, wrote extensively about the caliph's personal guard. He chronicled their size, strength, and the legend that would grow around them. His records paint a picture that blurs the line between history and myth. Al-Makrizi's writings spoke of men who could lift horses with ease, beasts of burden that most could barely move. Yet these giants, bred and trained by the Fatimids, could carry them as though they were nothing more than sacks of grain. These were no ordinary men. Their strength was a testament to the extreme measures taken by the caliph to build his army, a force of men designed not only to protect, but to strike terror into the hearts of enemies and subjects alike. In Al-Makrizi's Al-Mawaiz, he recorded that the caliph's guards were giants, warriors of such size and strength that their mere presence inspired fear. These men were the culmination of a radical genetic program, a calculated effort to create a warrior class unlike any the world had ever seen. Their power was no myth. It was no exaggeration born of superstition. It was the result of careful, precise manipulation, a breeding program designed to craft warriors capable of feats beyond human comprehension. And in the eyes of those who witnessed their might, these men were nothing short of supernatural, a product of science and ambition, their existence proving that, in the pursuit of power, the Fatimids had achieved the impossible. In 2023, a team of scientists using advanced DNA technology stumbled upon a discovery that would shed new light on a centuries-old mystery. While examining ancient remains unearthed in Sicily, they uncovered evidence that rewrote our understanding of the Fatimid warriors. Through the use of modern genetic testing, researchers were able to determine that the soldiers who once served under the Fatimid Caliphate were, on average, 6 feet 7 inches tall, a height that was nothing short of extraordinary, especially when compared to the average height of Europeans during the same period, which was closer to 5 feet 4 inches. How could this be possible? Were these soldiers simply taller due to better nutrition, or was there something far more deliberate at play? 2. Protein engineering, camel milk and date paste. Dye. The answer may lie in their diet, a carefully engineered nutritional plan designed to maximize growth. Historical records suggest that the Fatimids intentionally fed their warriors a diet rich in camel milk and date paste. Camel milk, known for its high protein and calcium content, combined with dates, packed with essential sugars and energy, was integral in the Fatimid strategy to foster growth in their warriors from a young age. This wasn't mere sustenance. It was the foundation of a genetic experiment. This diet was designed not just to sustain, but to push the boundaries of human development. It was the first step in crafting warriors of legendary proportions. 3. Selective pairings, controlled marriages in barrack. But nutrition was only part of the equation. To further amplify this genetic engineering, the Caliph initiated a controversial and highly controlled breeding program. Soldiers were not only selected for their size and strength, but they were also paired with others who met the same criteria. The warriors of the Fatimid Caliphate were segregated into barracks, where they lived and trained together. It was here that the next step in the genetic experiment began: selective pairings. Young, strong men were matched with others of similar size and strength, ensuring that only the most genetically viable warriors reproduced. These marriages weren't based on love or romantic choice. They were based purely on the physical attributes deemed necessary to create the ultimate warrior. 4th. Gruesome culling. Weak infants left in the desert. Yet not all who were born into the program were allowed to survive. The Caliph's genetic ambitions were ruthless. Weakness was a crime, a flaw that could not be tolerated. The weakest infants, those who failed to grow at the expected rate, were left behind in the unforgiving desert to die. This gruesome culling ensured that only the strongest, tallest individuals survived to adulthood, further propagating the Fatimid vision of superior warriors. By eliminating those who didn't meet the height and strength requirements, the Fatimids guaranteed that only the most genetically capable soldiers would carry on the lineage. It was a chilling process that embodied the Caliph's obsession with creating the perfect warrior. 5. Beni Hassan tombs, oversized guards in ancient art. And in the art and history of Egypt, there exists a silent testament to these giants. The Beni Hassan tombs, known for their depictions of ancient guards, show figures far larger than what would be considered normal for the time. These towering figures are not mere artistic exaggerations. They are representations of the Fatimid soldiers, a race of men whose physical form was a direct result of the empire's genetic experimentation. Through these ancient murals, we can see a visual confirmation of what the scientists would later discover through DNA studies. Tall, muscular warriors, larger than life, their presence designed to intimidate and dominate. Sixth expert commentary, Dr. Sarah Rifke. This wasn't just training, it was applied genetics, practiced 800 years before Darwin even proposed the theory of evolution by natural selection. The Fatimids were ahead of their time, and their breeding program was the precursor to modern genetic engineering. Through the careful manipulation of diet, selective pairing, and ruthless culling, the Caliph was able to create a genetic line of warriors who were stronger, taller, and more capable than the average soldier of the time. By applying modern scientific techniques to these ancient remains, we now know the full extent of the Fatimids' ambitions that stretched far beyond the battlefield. They sought to redefine the very nature of strength, and in doing so, they crafted a legacy of warriors that would echo through history. 1. Expert commentary, Dr. Sarah Rifke, Cairo University. This wasn't just training, it was applied genetics, 800 years before Darwin. Dr. Rifke's statement underscores the audacity of the Fatimid Caliphate's genetic ambitions. Using the tools of their time, nutrition, selective breeding, and ruthless elimination, they engineered warriors who defied nature's norms. 2. The Fatimid diet, a weapon of growth. But how did the Fatimids achieve such extraordinary height and strength? The secret lay in their diet, a carefully crafted combination of camel milk and date paste, both staples in the Fatimid nutrition plan. High in protein, calcium, and essential fats, camel milk is renowned for its ability to boost bone strength and promote muscle growth. Meanwhile, date paste, rich in sugars, fiber, and potassium, provided the energy necessary for physical endurance and growth. This diet wasn't just about keeping soldiers alive. It was designed to enhance their size, their physical capacity, and ultimately, their military strength. 3. Protein engineering, enhancing growth with camel milk. Camel milk wasn't just a beverage, it was a potent source of proteins and growth factors that worked to accelerate physical development. Unlike cow's milk, camel milk contains higher levels of essential fatty acids, which are crucial for muscle formation and cell repair. By consistently feeding their soldiers camel milk, the Fatimids ensured their warriors received a constant supply of nutrients that supported rapid skeletal and muscular development. 4. Date paste, a vital source of energy. Dates, a key component of the Fatimid diet, provided more than just sweetness. Packed with energy-boosting sugars, potassium, and other vital nutrients, date paste ensured that the soldiers had the stamina required for intense physical training. With high levels of natural sugars, dates played a pivotal role in maintaining the energy levels of the soldiers throughout their rigorous training and physical tests. This combination of camel milk and date paste offered the soldiers the fuel necessary for their extraordinary growth. The science of growth and strength, nutritional impact. With a diet this specific, the Fatimids were able to achieve results that would have been impossible through training alone. The physical transformation was extraordinary. Modern science has confirmed that diet plays a crucial role in bone and muscle development. The combination of camel milk's nutrients and the energy from dates worked in tandem, providing a synergistic effect that enhanced the Fatimids' growth in ways that modern diets simply cannot replicate. The Fatimids' height. Advantage: a legacy of giants. The result was a generation of soldiers who were, on average, 6 feet 7 inches tall. Giants compared to their European counterparts, who typically stood at only 5 feet 4 inches. This height gave them a distinct advantage on the battlefield, but it was also a manifestation of the meticulous care the Fatimids had put into their genetic engineering. Selective breeding in the barracks. 1. Controlled marriages, ensuring the next generation of giants. But diet alone wasn't enough. To truly cement their legacy, the Fatimids took their ambition further. They practiced a form of controlled breeding, pairing the tallest and strongest warriors to ensure that the next generation of soldiers would carry on their imposing stature. Much like breeding prized animals, the Caliphate strategically selected mates based on physical prowess. The strongest warriors were paired with one another, ensuring that only the best genes were passed down. These marriages were not driven by romantic love, but by a desire to breed the ultimate warriors for the empire. 2. The process of selection. A ruthless approach. Every soldier's potential was scrutinized. Officers would closely observe the men during training, identifying those with the most impressive physical attributes: height, strength, and endurance. Only the top-tier warriors were chosen to father the next generation. This process was ruthless and exacting. Warriors who failed to meet the stringent physical standards were excluded from the breeding program. If a soldier did not meet the height or strength requirements, they were simply not considered. This ensured that only the fittest would propagate. 3. The social and psychological impact of selection. The psychological weight of this selection process was immense. Young warriors trained in the hopes of being chosen to join the breeding program, knowing that their physical prowess would determine their worth. It was an environment where strength was the ultimate currency. For many, the fear of failure was constant. To be excluded from the program meant not only being denied the opportunity to contribute to the Caliph's vision, but it also signified a social and personal failure. The genetic legacy, ensuring superior offspring. The Fatimids breeding program wasn't just about the present. It was a legacy meant to endure. By controlling marriage pairings and ensuring only the strongest and tallest were selected to reproduce, they ensured that the next generation of warriors would be even more formidable than the last. Through this method, the Fatimids aimed to create a lineage of warriors who were not only the perfect physical specimens of their time, but would also pass on their superior genes for generations to come. The enduring legacy of the Fatimid giants. Today, in the Nile Delta, there are still families who share a striking physical resemblance to the ancient Fatimid soldiers. Studies have shown that certain genetic markers, inherited from this breeding program, still persist in the population. Could it be that the genetic imprint of the Fatimids still lingers in the bloodlines of the Nile Delta's tallest families? Some scientists believe so, offering a modern link to an ancient empire that manipulated genetics long before it was understood by science. 4. Culling the weak one. The harsh reality of the Fatimid breeding program. In the Fatimid Empire, the pursuit of physical perfection was unyielding. The breeding program, designed to forge warriors of unmatched strength, left no room for weakness. Infants born with defects or failing to meet the physical standards set by the Caliphate were discarded, left to die in the desert, their cries carried away by the wind. The desert was their tomb. The Fatimids had no tolerance for imperfection. Their program was brutal, a survival of the fittest designed to ensure only the strongest survived. Weakness, no matter how minor, was a death sentence. 2. The philosophy of perfection. At the heart of the Fatimid breeding program was the belief that only the strongest could serve the empire. Weakness wasn't just a flaw, it was a threat to the Caliphate's power. Every decision, every action was taken with a singular focus: to create the perfect soldier, one capable of defending the empire's vast territories and ensuring its place at the top of the world. Perfection came at a cost. For the Fatimids, that cost was human life. Infants born into weakness, whether from genetic defects or simply failing to meet the towering standards set by their ancestors, were discarded, without mercy. To the Caliph, there was no room for imperfection in their quest for military supremacy. 3. The fate of the abandoned. The desert was a place of exile, where the discarded infants were left to face their inevitable demise. Alone, vulnerable, and abandoned by their own people, they were the casualties of a program that saw them as nothing more than a means to an end. Their fate was a tragic reflection of the empire's ambition. The weak were not given a chance to survive. They were erased, their existence wiped from the annals of history. They were casualties of an empire driven by ruthless ideals of strength and perfection, where only the best could endure. The harsh measures behind the power. Behind the empire's glory was a hidden truth. The Fatimids were willing to sacrifice the weak to maintain their dominance. The discarded infants, the abandoned children, were the shadows of an empire that valued strength above all else. Their deaths were a necessary evil in the eyes of the Caliph and his closest advisors, an unpleasant reality of empire building. To those who survived the brutal testing, the message was clear. Strength is everything. The empire's soldiers, towering and powerful, were a living testament to the ruthless measures taken by the Fatimids to secure their future. And yet, for every soldier who stood tall, countless others were left behind, their lives never to be remembered. 5. Legacy of cruelty. The ancient Egyptian connection. 1. The legacy of ancient Egypt. The concept of giant warriors was not born in the Fatimid era. Long before the rise of the Caliphate, the ancient Egyptians portrayed towering figures in their art. Guards so large they seemed to defy nature itself. These colossal beings stood at the gates of tombs and temples, their size symbolizing not just strength, but a divine connection to the gods. These giant guards were more than mere men. They were symbols of power, fear, and reverence. Their immense size might have inspired the Fatimids, who sought to create a new breed of warriors, capable of unimaginable strength. The Fatimids' ambition to recreate these ancient giants was not just about physical power, it was about invoking the very spirit of the past. 2. Egyptian influence on the Fatimid Empire. The Fatimids, like many rulers of the time, were deeply influenced by the cultures and histories they inherited. Egypt, once the heart of ancient civilization, was rich with legends of divine rulers and mighty warriors. It is no wonder that the Fatimids, ruling over this ancient land, would seek to channel the legacy of Egypt's greatest warriors. The image of the giant warrior, immortalized in the tombs of Egypt, was not a mere relic of history. To the Fatimids, it was a symbol, one that resonated with their desire for power, dominance, and superiority. By recreating these giants, the Caliph hoped to forge a new dynasty of warriors who could stand as the ultimate protectors of the empire. The influence of Egyptian gods and legends. Ancient Egypt was also home to gods whose depictions mirrored the very giants the Fatimids sought to create. From the towering forms of Horus, god of the sky and kingship, to the godly Anubis, with his imposing presence, the idea of divine figures walking among men was ingrained in Egyptian culture. These gods were often shown as giants, beings who transcended mortal limitations to embody strength, protection, and divine order. To the Fatimids, these ancient gods were not just figures of legend. They were blueprints for the warriors they sought to create. By using the ancient Egyptian model, they believed they could forge soldiers who not only embodied physical strength, but also carried the weight of divine purpose and power. 4th, a cycle of ancient power. The Fatimids, with their obsession for strength and perfection, were not merely copying ancient Egyptian warriors. They were channeling a deeper, more profound legacy. Through their breeding program, they sought to bring back the ancient giants of Egypt, not just in body, but in spirit. They wanted to reclaim a power long associated with Egypt's greatest rulers, believing that through these giant warriors, they could elevate their empire to the heights of divine glory. The Fallout 1. Saladin's overthrow. In 1171, Saladin, a legendary figure in Islamic history, brought an end to the Fatimid dynasty. As his forces crushed the empire, Saladin's chroniclers recorded the event with grim words. "We defeated the giants, their size beyond what we considered normal." The giants had been toppled in battle, but their legacy, their size and strength, would linger long after their bodies had been abandoned in the deserts of history. 2. The fate of the Fatimid giants. The Fatimid giants, once the pride of their empire, now lay defeated and forgotten. Their towering forms had once instilled fear and awe in the hearts of their enemies, but as Saladin's forces swept through, they were left to decay in the sands of time. Their destruction marked the end of an era, a time when towering warriors stood as symbols of the Fatimids' ambition, strength, and genetic mastery. 3. Discovery of Fatimid DNA. Centuries later, in the Nile Delta, tall families who had no knowledge of their lineage began to notice something strange. They were not just taller than the average population. They seemed to carry a physical trait that linked them to the ancient giants of Cairo. DNA tests revealed that these families shared 17% of their genetic material with the remains of the Fatimid giants. Could this be proof that the genetic legacy of the Fatimids still lived on in modern Egypt? 4. The mystery gene. What was the secret behind the giants' size? Was it the result of careful genetic manipulation? Or perhaps the Fatimids had discovered a specific gene, a supergene, that gave them the strength and stature of warriors? Was this gene identified and nurtured, passed down through generations of carefully selected breeding? The mystery of what made these giants so tall and strong remains unsolved. But one thing is certain: the legacy of the Fatimids' genetic mastery lives on in ways we are only beginning to understand. 5. Conclusion. A legacy lost to time. The Fatimid super soldiers remain one of history's most enigmatic chapters, a tale not just of genetic manipulation, but of ambition, power, and the lengths to which rulers will go to achieve greatness. The giants of Cairo may have been erased from the pages of history, but their story is far from forgotten. The mystery of their genetic legacy continues to captivate us as we search for the truth behind the towering warriors who once ruled the sands of Egypt. Could the giants of the Fatimid dynasty still have descendants today? What gene could have made them so tall? Let us know your theories in the comments below. What gene did they delete to make them taller? Discover the untold legacy of the Fatimids and how their innovative genetic strategies still shape the world today. Stay tuned for more revelations, subscribe now, and continue your journey through history's most powerful secrets.